Welcome to the Idea Climbing Podcast. Self-sabotage runs rampant in many professions, especially entrepreneurship. We discuss how to overcome and eventually eliminate self-sabotage in this episode with my guest, Shiraz Baboo. Shiraz is a multi-award winning author, international speaker, and reality interventionist. He is known for helping people to rewrite their reality to overcome challenges in their lives. Shiraz has helped thousands of people to overcome illness, poverty, and unconsciously addicted struggles. We dive into issues such as how to discover and clear negative beliefs, how to train your brain to think the thoughts you want to think and feel the feelings you want to feel, the one thing above all else that you need to do to eliminate self-sabotage, and other golden nuggets of advice. You're going to love this show. Shiraz, thank you for making time to do the Idea Climbing Podcast. I really appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
And we're going to be talking about something I love it that we came up with before I hit record, how entrepreneurs can eliminate self-sabotage. I know that's a common problem. I mean, just widespread. Before we get into some of the strategies and the tactics, things like that, what's your story? How did you learn how to overcome it? Why is that important to you?
It's important to me because I was stagnant for decades as an entrepreneur. And I would, I was doing well. I was doing about $100,000 a year. However, when you're at $100,000 year over after year after year after year, and it's never increasing, it becomes very, very frustrating. And I know I knew how to make money because I got from nothing to $100,000. So what the hell was going on that I was stuck there? And I actually even at one point had an idea that could make me $1 million a year. And it came up when I was at one of those events with the people from The Secret. So Bob Proctor was there, John Assaraf, Joe Vitale. And I was talking to them. I managed to get contact information off them. And so I was going to create this app that involved all of them. And I know with their mailing lists and what was going to be in the app was going to be make millions of dollars. So my income went from $100,000 to $0 for 2 years. And I'm like, what? Yeah.
What happened?
I mean, I left my job because I was so sure this was going to work. I started working on the app. I come from computer background. I design, develop, and project manage computer systems. Apps were not a big issue. And it was the self-sabotage. Now, the relationships, they didn't not like me. It's just that sort of everything started to fizzle out. And I went off their radar and I kept trying to develop the app. And then I kept getting delays in the app. And so I'd have to come back to them. And I'm like, it's still not ready. And so eventually they gave up. I gave up. And finally I'm like, I'm just going to go back to doing what I was doing. And when I went back to my old job, I came right back to $100,000 a year. But now I was just doing this job thinking I had this opportunity to work with these big names to make such an impact, to make $1 million. And it just fizzled out. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So it wasn't until years later that there was this other opportunity to start making more money that I by that point, I'd been learning these techniques that I use. And I remembered, wait, the last time I did this, my income went down. I don't want my income going down. So let's find out why I made my income go down. Because that's the thing. Most people don't realize you don't self-sabotage because of circumstance. And you don't do it oftentimes because you're afraid. You self-sabotage because you're so comfortable and actually addicted to your current state that when you leave that state, your body goes into withdrawal and makes you do things to come back to where it's addicted. Now, the exception is if what you're trying to do scares you so much, it pushes you in the opposite direction, which is what happened with me. So there was a big fear around having $1 million a year. And what it was, I worked with a coach and we found out when I was a teenager, I'd be hanging out with family and friends and they were like, Shiraz, you're really smart, you're creative. We have zero doubt that you're going to be making millions. So you're going to have that house on the beach. You're going to be traveling the world. And I'm like, yeah, this sounds great. I'm loving it. And then they say, and then we get to come hang out with you. We get to stay at your place. We'll get to travel with you. And my brain went, oh my God, they're going to leech off me. If I make $1 million, they will descend. I will have zero privacy. I will be compelled to take them with me because I have all the money. And my mind said, you know what? $100,000 a year is, you can live comfortably, but it's safe. $1 million a year, screw that. So when I kept attempting to make more money, my brain brought me back to, here's where it's safe, 100,000. And when I finally figured out how to do 1 million, my brain said, get the hell away from that. Zero. Let's get as far away from that as possible. And keep in mind, when you think you're about to make $1 million a year, you are not spending money like you're making $0 a year. So during those 2 years, my savings disappeared, credit card debt accumulated, I was couch surfing, and I just always had my laptop. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it work. And it just didn't work. Right? So once we got that belief cleared, by the next year, I'd done $200,000. Right? Just by snap that belief out of there.
How did you do that? What did you do to clear that belief? Well, first of all, how did you recognize it in the first place at the level of, okay, I'm going to do something about this, and you became conscious? How did you do that?
Because of that whole 2 year experience, that something happened, something triggered that. And here I am with this opportunity to start making a lot more money. And I'm like, I don't want to go through that again. I need someone that's going to tell me what's going on inside, because it was absolutely, at that point, I knew it was absolutely internal. It had nothing to do with what I was doing. And so I worked with a coach, and we went and just started exploring what happened with me growing up. And most of the stuff, this is the crazy thing, 95% of what's keeping you from having success in your business has nothing to do with your business. It's the stuff that happened typically between the ages of 0 and 6 years old, and then somewhat between 6 years old and 20. And for me, it was teenage years where that thing kicked in. But there were other stuff when I was really young that's been affecting my life that I've been getting rid of as I discover it, so that I make more money. I'm healthier. I have better relationships. It's actually like I've slowed down the aging process as a result of this, and like all these things have to do with all these internal beliefs. And so the 2023 was the first time I did $1 million in sales, because I had removed these beliefs.
How did you remove the beliefs? What does that look like?
So it's different for who you work with, but for me, when I'm working with people, we have a conversation about what you want to accomplish. And when I talk to you, I can tell when your conscious beliefs match your unconscious beliefs. And it's not a gift, it's a skill that anyone can acquire. And I teach people how to do this. And so if I'm saying, Mark, would you like to make an extra $100,000 this year? Your answer would typically be yes. But when I ask you the question, I could feel, oh, it's a no. Right? Your unconscious is there. And people that work with me, eventually they feel it in their body, like, oh, I felt that. That wasn't a real yes. Because you learn to tune in to what's going on. And so when we know that your unconscious doesn't want to make $1 million or $100,000 more, but your conscious does, we have to find out why. And very common things are, like for me, if I make lots of money, people are going to start asking me for it. They're going to say, can you give me money? Can you invest in my business? Can you give to my charity? Can you take care of me? And when you have thoughts like that, if there's any emotional reaction to them, like, oh my God, I don't want that, then your mind goes, oh, we don't want that. So let's make sure we don't make that much money. Problem solved. And this is it. The emotions are the keys. If you feel an emotional trigger, there's something inside you that needs to shift. Right? Other things that come up, I don't want to pay a lot of taxes. I don't know if I'll be able to, if people will love me for me or my money if I make lots of money. Right? Some people are raised with, you have to work hard to succeed. Well, if you want to go from 100,000 to 1 million, that's 10 times the work if you go by that formula, right?
Oh, yes.
Right? And your mind's like, oh, hell no. So yeah, and those are very common things that are in people that keep them from going up. And the best way to not go to that level where the fear is to self-sabotage.
So what do you do to start? I'm going to say it like this, and hopefully it comes out right. How do you start to stop self-sabotage?
You have to realize that if you're not making progress, at some level, you don't want to make progress. And you have to be like real about that. It's like, because it's not what you're, if you've tried all these different methods and it's still not working, if you know what you're supposed to do and you keep getting sick or getting busy or getting distracted, all of that is signs that you don't really want it. So that's when you have to say, okay, why don't I want it? That's the question you want to ask, not why isn't this working or what do I have to do differently?
Mm-hmm.
It's why don't I want this to succeed? What am I missing that's causing this self-sabotage to happen all the time?
So what happens when you figure out what's missing? Then what?
Then you have to look at how real it is. Like, so if it's something like, people are going to ask me for money, well, yeah, people are going to ask you for money. But now it comes back to the emotions. If people ask you for money and you're like, oh man, I should give it to them, I feel guilty. Well, that's you choosing to feel guilty. And your mind tries to avoid emotional distress. And the biggest things it tries to avoid are guilt and shame. So if you feel guilty, if you don't give money to people when you have lots of money, you won't make lots of money. It's that simple. When you decide, well, if they ask me for it, I can say no and not feel guilty, then the emotional disruption is gone. And you can make the money, right? So, I get people ask me for money. I'm like, no. And sometimes I get people ask me for money. Like one of my favorite things is at Thanksgiving and Christmas at the grocery store, they always say, can you give $2 or $10 to the food bank? Because this is the time they could really use support. Mm-hmm. Well, now that I make a lot of money, a certain percentage of that goes into my charity fund, which doesn't necessarily go to specific charities. But whenever I feel, oh, I can make an impact for this person or this organization, then I'm going to give it. So that they'll be like, this just happened like just at Christmas. Would you like to donate $2? And I'm like, no. And they're like, no. and I'm like, I'll give you 200. And they're like, what? And there was no guilt. It was in this place of joy and playfulness. Right? Because I didn't have to.
And you mentioned shame. Dive into that a little bit. What does that look like and how do you overcome the shame that you mentioned?
So if you, let's say you made some money and then you spent it frivolously. A lot of people after the fact go, oh my God, I can't believe I spent that on, I don't know, booze or travel that gives me nothing in return other than the one experience and now it's gone. I could have invested it. There's shame in that, right? I might have gambled it away. I spent it on video games, whatever it is, that it didn't enhance your life. You just had a good time and ended. A lot of people will do that and then there's shame. That's a decision that you decide to feel shame. But once it's there, when you say, I want to make a lot of money, your mind goes back to, well, the last time we made money, we spent it frivolously and we felt bad about it. We felt shame. I want to make sure I never feel that shame again. What's the easiest solution? Don't make the money. If we don't make the money, we can't spend it. We can't feel shame. Like it goes for the simplest answers.
Are most of the answers simple in your mind?
When you break it down, it becomes really simple, but a lot of times it doesn't make sense to people. Mm-hmm. Right? Because I'll say, well, you felt shame and now you're trying not to feel shame anymore. It's like, well, I just won't feel shame. But oftentimes you can't just say, I just won't feel shame because it's programmed in there. The memory of how bad it felt at the time is there and your mind hates feeling shame. So even though you may consciously say that, unconsciously, you're still driving yourself towards a certain destination.
Okay, so how do you either stop driving towards that destination, or the one thing I'm thinking of right now is once you realize the shame or other things, okay, I got it. What's the ladder to get out of the hole once you realize what the problem is?
So number one, you have to train your brain, right? It's like building a muscle. You train your brain to think the thoughts you want, to feel the feelings you want, instead of what's programmed in you for you to feel. And
go on.
And that is like going to a gym. It requires doing specific brain training exercises. Meditation is one way of doing it. I've created specific audios to help people stay calm in crazy situations and get really focused on what they want. And so when you start doing these, you build up the muscles. Now, what happens with some people is they latch on to some of these things. They find these audios or programs and stuff that help you train the brain, they start to get the results, but then they don't keep up with the training. And it is just like going to a gym. If you train to become a bodybuilder, you reach bodybuilder status, and then you say, well, now I don't need to work out anymore because I'm a bodybuilder, that doesn't end well for you, right? Right? Now, you don't have to work out as hard. You just need to be in maintenance once you get there. But you need to keep doing the training. And this is what happens with a lot of people is if you go through a course or go to a retreat, you have some breakthrough, you start to see results. And then after a few weeks or a few months, you start to lose those results. And we chalk it up as circumstances. Well, I got busy or some clients canceled. It was a technology glitch. But what really happened was you stopped training and you went into withdrawal, going back to the life you were addicted to before the training started.
So how do you maintain? What does maintenance mode look like once you become the mental bodybuilder? Once you hit that level and you realize you don't want to backpedal, you don't want to stop training. I mean, is it mental exercises to incentivize yourself to keep training and stay in maintenance mode? How do you stay there once you get there?
And once you get into it, it's just like any routine. It's just like I have to brush my teeth every day. You'll do these exercises. And the cool thing is it's like 10 to 15 minutes is all you need each day to stay at that level. And if you can't find 10 to 15 minutes, that's self-sabotage again. Okay, just so you know.
Well, when you say 10 to 15, tell me a little bit more. 10 to 15 minutes means what are you doing for 10 to 15 minutes?
So there are various exercises. My go-to exercise is just to train my brain to think specific thoughts. And for that, I think a specific thought. So I breathe and I imagine the breath starting at my feet. As I inhale, it comes up to the tip of my head. And as I exhale, I see it going back down to my feet. And I just think about that for 10 to 15 minutes of breathing and nothing else, right? And this is harder than you may think it is, because what happens is you'll take a breath and you're like, and then you'll see it go down and you'll see it come up and you'll think, well, this is easy. And that this is easy, you're already out of it because you're thinking about something other than the breath. So while you're doing this, your mind's going to want to chatter with you, right? How many more breaths do we go? How far have we come? Wow, we're doing better than last time. Every one of those thoughts takes you out of it. You just lost it. And it took me months and months and months to get to a place where I could just be in the breathing. What that meant was that muscle had built up. Now, when I want to focus on something, like I want to focus on being an amazing speaker on stage, then I would stand there and I would imagine myself on stage. I would do it in real time and start doing my talk, imagining the audience and feeling the love from the audience, feeling my confidence on stage. And when you do that, your brain can't tell that you're imagining or it's actually happening. So it assumes it's actually happening because it's all a contiguous thought. And so then it starts rewiring your neural pathways to say, this is who I am. And you can apply this to anything. You can apply this to working out if you want to get physically fit. You can apply this to confidence in closing a sales call. You can apply this to speaking on stage. You can do it to anything as long as you do it in that fashion. So your brain thinks it's actually happening. You're actually doing it even before you do it.
So and the visualization is that part. That's part of the maintenance. It sounds like a key part of the maintenance.
Yeah,
is visualization. Is that what you're saying? You need to visualize every day.
You need to visualize and you need to be in the feelings with the visualization. Visualization itself does not work. Feeling great about things does not work. Putting them together is what activates what's going on in your brain. And a lot of people do one or the other.
So I think I remember this from Thinking into the Results with Bob Proctor, or even Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. If I hear you right, what you're saying is it's the mixture of emotions with the other stuff that happens. And a thought without emotion won't get you anywhere. Would that be true?
That's correct. Because remember, your mind is all about emotions. It does not care about physical. And while you're trying to get physical results, if you don't link it to an emotion so your mind responds to it, you don't get anything.
So what type of emotion, how do you get if someone's thinking, watching or listening right now, and they're thinking, okay, I've done the visualization thing, I'll call it the surface level, the non-emotional side. How do you mix emotion into it? What do you have to do?
So one of the easiest emotions to get to is gratitude. There's all sorts of gratitude journals, gratitude programs, all these things and so you can get into a feeling of gratitude. And that's what I do a lot of the time, is just be in this place of gratitude as often as I can during the day. If I'm shopping just for groceries and something's on sale, I say thank you. I get into that gratitude, and for most people, it's like, oh, it's on sale. That's great, but you don't get into a genuine feeling of gratitude. And so someone opens the door for me, get into that feeling of gratitude. And I get into that feeling over and over and over again. And here's the crazy thing. Once you're starting to just embody this gratitude, your RAS reticular activating system starts looking to the world unconsciously and automatically for things to be grateful for. You'll start to see things that weren't there before that you can take advantage of, so you can be in gratitude. Right? It'll actually change the way you think. And then you'll start to say, why do these things keep showing up for me to be grateful for? You don't realize that you're looking for them now. Right? Because a lot of times what you need to change your business is right in front of you, but your reticular activating system doesn't allow you to see it because it's looking for other things you think are priorities.
I like what you said about noticing other things, or it's looking for other things. Is that the other side of the coin? Have you trained it to bring you back to the whatever $100,000 a year? Is that because your brain's used to it, sees that because it's so used to it, and you're not practicing the $1 million a year? Would that be
That's
right?
it. Yeah. Because
Can you change that through visualization?
yeah. And so, because when you want to make $1 million a year, if you don't change your mindset, you're looking to create $1 million a year using the tools you've used to make $100,000 a year. It's not going to work, right? So it's a very different way to think to get to $1 million than it is to get to 100,000. And that's the downfall for most entrepreneurs. 60% of people that get to $100,000 a year never make it past that. Right? We call it the six-figure rut. Now, for the people that are under six figures, it sounds great to be in a six-figure rut, but for the people that are in it, it's frustrating as hell.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it comes down to getting to maintenance mode, visualizing and making that a daily practice, infused. I'm sure there's other things, but for the sake of this, infused with gratitude.
Infused with gratitude or whatever emotion you want, right? Because here's the thing. If you've ever read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, he explains scientifically, this has all been shown, that it's not only that we feel emotions, we are addicted to a specific emotion. Right? We actually have receptors on our cells for the chemicals associated with that emotion, because every emotion we have causes chemicals to flood our body, and it's all different formulas, different solutions. And so whatever the default is, your cells creates receptors for that to create a system that's in homeostasis, right? So some people are addicted to frustration. Some are addicted to fear. Some are addicted to gratitude. I'm addicted to joy and laughter. There's always a reason for me to laugh every day. I get my fix from that. So what happens is when let's say you're in frustration, I'm not making the money I want, I keep self-sabotaging, how do I get out of this? And you figure a way to get out of it. Now your cells go into withdrawal because you're not frustrated anymore. They actually send a signal to your brain that says, make this person frustrated so we can get our chemical fix. So then something happens that frustrates you, or a thought comes in that makes you get frustrated. You get frustrated. The chemicals flood your body. Your body goes, oh, thank God. Now you get frustrated because you're frustrated. You give it another hit and you're like, oh my God. So you have to actually learn to stay in the new emotion, the intentional decision to try this new emotion and stay in it long enough that your cells go, we're not getting the chemicals. They will change the receptors on your cells. And now you're addicted to the new emotion.
How long does that usually take?
Here's the thing. It takes, on average, and it can go a few months less or many months more. So I don't want to discourage people, but it will happen. 6 months.
Well, you're saying 6 months can be done with 10 to 15 minutes a day once you get out of the hole, right?
Yeah.
So you're not asking for a Herculean overhaul my schedule, redo everything I do. It's the 10 to 15 minutes visualization, gratitude, laughter, smiling, whatever it might be, and stay in maintenance mode for 6 months.
And I'm just saying, throughout the day, if you notice yourself going to that old emotion, pull yourself back to the new emotion. Oh, I'm getting frustrated again. Okay, what can I be grateful for? Because every time you start going that old emotion, that's the addiction kicking in. So you want to pull yourself out. And this thing, this can be done way more easily when you're in a group of people. If you're in a group of people that are doing gratitude exercises, if you're doing in a group of people that are supportive and loving of each other's success, then you stay in those emotions way more often. Uh, Oftentimes we're in an environment that's conducive for the emotion we're in. And while some people can't physically change that environment, you can go online and hang out with people that create that new environment so that you start having those other emotions and get addicted to those other emotions. Right. This is why if you're in a program, a group program with people that are all looking to create more, that's good for you. But I've seen programs where it's a group program we're supposed to make more, and I watch everyone just bitch about how they're not making more. I'm like, that's not a good program. The idea was there, but you've got the wrong environment. So you want to get to a place where it's like, oh my God, things are changing.
That This has been absolutely awesome. Now they know how to get out of the whole maintenance mode. 6 months. We've covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. When it comes to eliminating self-sabotage, someone listening or watching is like, I heard a lot of good stuff. If you were to say, you know what, there's at least this one thing, at least do this above all else. Well, there's something you want to reiterate or something you haven't touched on yet. What would you say? At least do this if you want to start ending self-sabotage. What would you say?
I would say the most important thing is to find an environment, find people, or create it yourself where there is that emotion you want. Because it's all coming down to emotions. So whether it's gratitude or joy or whatever it is, hang out with those people. Do activities that bring that into your body. I mean, I start off my day, I get into the shower and I play music to get myself going for the day because that's the mood that sets the rest of the day. And then that music's still playing while I'm getting dressed, while I'm making my breakfast, and I will dance while I'm making my breakfast. Like this is so I'm just empowering myself in this mood because that's how I want to feel all day long. It's emotions that matter.
This has been excellent. If people want to find you online, where's the best place or places to go?
You can just go to energeticmagic.com and look for me there. And there'll be social media links and stuff there as well. So just check it out.
Thank you very much, Shiraz. This has been excellent.
Thank you, Mark. It's been great being here.
And scene.